But I think I was going to call Eleni, a senior ADHD coach, and Alexia as well, also Adka, to discuss ADHD coaching in the context of families and education. So Alexia and Eleni, I will ask you to unmute and start your video. Let's have a look. Hey, Eleni.
Hello, everybody.
It's great to see you. Hey, nice to see you. So, yeah, thank you for joining. So, I just thought we could share with the public how ADHD coaching helps, I guess, firstly, young people with ADHD and their families. So, I thought maybe if you could each share, like, what kind of challenges do these families often bring, and how ADHD coaching helps. So, Eleni, let's start off with you.
Yes, of course. My name is Eleni Sfaroudis. I'm based in New York, ADCA trained, and also coaching clients in the UK and beyond. I do a lot of work with families and students, and what David said so succinctly, so in such a lovely way, is often that first question: what do you know about your ADHD? And whether that question is posed to a young adult or somebody newly diagnosed or with a suspected diagnosis, or more often than not, a parent, that really sort of suggests where the starting point of education needs to be. And that shift in how we view ADHD as not a diagnosis per se, but all of the traits that David described, and the I think he called it a buried.
Oops, I think we've frozen. Hang on a minute. Oh no, Eleni will be back. Alexis, do you want to take over? And hopefully Eleni will be back. Must have been some.
Yes, of course. I can't carry on exactly as Eleni was saying. So yeah, just jumping in briefly. I wanted to produce this statistic, this horrifying statistic that comes out quite often, which is that by the age of 12, children with ADHD will have heard 20,000 more negative comments than their neurotypical peers. And that's just such a heartbreaking statistic to hear. And so when I start working with children and the families, the first thing is to really understand themselves and how their brain works, understanding their strengths, and reframing things from a perspective of positivity, and also bringing in that growth mindset so that they can really feel that they could then take their own skills and knowledge and build on that so that they can produce the best for themselves. And that's a really key point, because so many parents start off with, well, I want my child to be able to do this and to accomplish that. And a lot of the work is actually understanding where that child is at the time, what is impacting them in terms of, there is a sort of 3 to 5 year time lag, developmental lag, which may affect social skills, it may affect cognitive processes, it may impact their ability to organize themselves or get themselves places, the timekeeping, which doesn't always go away, issues with that. And so really understanding what the parents have got in terms of the child and working with that rather than imposing expectations, which so often come from other families, peers, and their own family. Well, why isn't your child doing this? Or, why they're not achieving that.
Thank you. Yeah. Eleni, sorry, you fell off just now, but did you want to either comment or continue what you were saying? We didn't quite get the last. I don't know if I'll let you continue.
I'm not sure at what points I dropped off, but I think Alexia sort of carried forward the general thought. And just to sort of underscore that as parents with a child that maybe just received a diagnosis or you're learning more about it, it really requires us to maybe shift our perspective and sort of look through that ADHD lens, as we like to say, to recognize what our child's strengths are and how we as coaches can help parents sort of realize them.
Yeah, it's not easy, is it? It's particularly, and we talk about how ADHD is often quite genetic. So we can have an ADHD coaching the parent come to try and get some help for their child. And you can pretty quickly see, and I'm sure when we talk to Dr. Fran, she'll be able to talk about this too, but you can see the ADHD in one or both parents, and you can see maybe how some of the approaches the parent is taking that's unaware of their ADHD and their impact maybe of certain communication is having on the child. And yeah, that can be quite difficult, can't it? How do you, in your own experience, it'd be interesting to hear, Alexia and Eleni, when you are faced with that kind of situation, you can see that, oh no, the parent's not helping here. How do I broach this? Yeah, how have you been able to address that successfully, even? Eleni?
Wow. I think a lot of parents, as you've said, Stephanie, they might have undiagnosed ADHD, or they simply, as even David said, it's so much easier to go to not a place of negativity, but to focus on things that maybe need to be changed or that aren't quite right, to a way that we want them done. And as parents, sometimes it's just quicker to do that immediately. But a coaching approach where we really sort of turn the table is maybe doing well. And even that's smallest step in the positive direction to recognize what they're working on or the way that they want to go is huge, and certainly vastly different from maybe parenting, other ways.
Yeah. Alexia, what about you? How do you broach the situation?
Well, going back a little bit in time, I didn't have my ADHD diagnosis. My eldest daughter didn't have an ADHD diagnosis, and it caused enormous issues and problems. And if I'd realized that there was such a thing as family ADHD coaching, it would have been absolutely life-saving. It just would have changed things around so much. But I didn't know about it. And now I work with quite a few families to really understand what's going on with their child, how they can support them, and also how they understanding what's happening with them, how they can moderate their behavior, how they can bring in the sort of the mindful pause before they say something that they might regret, and really kind of understanding what's going through their minds emotionally, and why they might be reacting in a certain way, and jumping to conclusions without perhaps talking to the child, and really kind of helping that communication process, which can otherwise break down really badly.
Yeah, and I guess that's with communication, because of rejection sensitive dysphoria. Do you find that, educating the families, particularly the child, the parents, I find that when I'm talking to parents and I introduce the concept of rejection sensitive dysphoria, it is a little light bulb goes on, because they can then look through that RSD lens at their child and why the child is reacting the way they do. And actually, it's quite helpful for the parent to have that in mind when they're communicating. Have you found that as well when you're talking to families? Eleni?
I would say many parents have really not have either heard of RSD or sort of recognized how debilitating this aspect of an ADHD can be. I mean, many of us grew up at a time where the opportunities for RSD were far fewer, and I mean social media, the internet. So now that our kids are sort of bombarded with these images and updates, really from quite a young age, this negativity and this perception is being introduced and reinforced. So it takes quite an effort to introduce that idea, and then ways to sort of have a conversation about what this means, what it really means, and not what you might think it means.
Yeah. What about you, Alexia, as well, in terms of communication styles? Once parents understand, how their words might be received, do you find that there's a lot of impact once they kind of a bit more mindful of
Yeah,
that?
and that's one of the things that we aim to work on quite quickly is positive reinforcement, and really noticing the good, what the child's done well, how they're kind of engaging, and perhaps tackling what's not going so well in a very different way, so that it's much more gentle, it's much more two-way, and almost getting the child to kind of helping the parents coach their child. That is ultimately the aim, to enable them to think about how they can get the best out of their child through coaching in as close a way as possible. And it's hard, but that's one of the best approaches.
Yeah, it is, isn't it? It's really hard. But trying to kind of help parents, equipping them with a bit of a coaching approach, being able to take a coaching approach to their child versus a direct, like you do this, do that. It doesn't tend to work well with our kids with ADHD, does that approach?
No, because of the opposition that often gets encountered. So the child's told, don't do that, or you must do that, and the opposite response comes up for them, and then you're in a sort of an area of conflict, and it's all going downhill from there.
Mm. And how do you see anxiety obviously play a role in that? Because obviously a lot of ADHD parents, particularly if they don't know they've got ADHD, are going to be very anxious probably, and have also small windows of tolerance. It's not the best combo. It's really tough, isn't it? That combo. And unfortunately, it's kind of there all the time with ADHD children, there is an ADHD parent, one or both. And it's, when you as an ADHD adult parent, find it hard enough just kind of managing your own time, managing your own emotions. And then you suddenly, when you have children with ADHD and even autism as well, being able to hold that space is like, well, for me personally, before I got the diagnosis and the medication, it was impossible. It was impossible. Like, yeah, how did you find it personally, Alexa?
Yeah, it was just exhausting on a daily basis, because my reactivity was so high, and without any kind of support or understanding, it's really, really tough. And once, even just kind of having that understanding, that diagnosis, you're like, okay, that can get you so far, but then understanding what's going on for you. So for example, a lot of parents complain about the messiness of their child's bedroom, and it's all on the child. Why isn't the child tidying up? Why aren't they doing that? And a lot of it is like, well, why is it so important to you? What is it about that space that is theirs that you need to control? So you can work on it from lots of different angles, and actually what's going on for the parent, and managing their own emotions and thoughts is key.
Yeah, helping the parent get clear. I guess that's where the coaching comes in too, because it's that overwhelm factor. As you just said, like giving them that ability to pause, which David was talking about, because an ADHD parent, even more so, to pause as an ADHD parent is like, again, impossible. So the coaching kind of space gives them this space, doesn't it, to be able to pause and actually question, yeah, well, hang on, is that expectation, is it achievable given, what I now know about my child's ADHD? So it gives them that opportunity to readjust their expectations, because that's where most of the conflict lies, would you say, in families, Eleni, with ADHD? Is there
Absolutely. I think,
yeah.
well, the difference between reacting and responding is really tremendous. And the response really takes into account that time that you are giving yourself as a parent to kind of reflect and look at the problem from a different way, or just give yourself a moment to breathe. So yes, that's a subtle difference, but it's huge.
Yeah, they say it takes a village to raise an ADHD, right? And when you've got ADHD yourself, yeah, you really do need more of that village. So it's like what we talk about Dr. Hallowell, ADHD 2.0, what he said about the life goal for ADHD is being interdependence, not independence. But like you probably see too, Eleni, a lot of parents with ADHD feel huge guilt and shame.
They do. And I think for some of the reasons that you mentioned or David mentioned earlier, we're always comparing, we're always sort of looking over our shoulder, and these are just unfair comparisons that are not going to serve us or our child in any way. and might even take longer for us to help them recognize these gifts that they have as we, approach ADHD from a strengths-based perspective rather than, something that is wrong or that we need to fix, so to speak.
Yeah, and we definitely encourage parents that are having these challenges to not try and do it alone. Don't do it alone. Don't do that to yourself. Don't feel, because of probably guilt, that you're feeling maybe these negative messages. I don't know, Alexia, how many negative messages ADHD parent gets. Once they really should quantify that one too.
Yes.
From the school.
Yeah,
you know?
and it's often from their own families, well, why can't you control your child, or why that behavior reflects on you, and that comes back to you and reinforces your own kind of feelings of guilt and not helpful at all. I'm so sorry, I've got to go.
Thank you.
Yes.
For participating, Alexia.
Okay. All right.
We'll speak again, I'm sure, soon, but thank you.
Okay, bye.
Yes. Thank you for having me as well, Stephanie.
No, again, thank you so much for your contributions. And I mean, Lenny, please do stay if you'd like for the next part, which is we're going to talk to Dr. Farron. So from a perspective of psychiatry and how we work together to help ADHDers redesign their lives around ADHD, basically, so they can hopefully thrive. But yeah.
Yeah, I'll stay for a few minutes and then drop off, but happy to be here. Thank you.